Hey everybody, Tim here with tonight's episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 3, Episode 8, Price. Now, for those like hardcore Star Trek fans that have watched the entire series before, everybody knows that Deanna Troi loves chocolate. It kind of becomes almost an ongoing joke that anytime she's had like a bad day or anything, she always goes for chocolate. For those who have always wondered, like, what's the first time we ever see that? It's this episode where she's having just kind of a rough day, and she's at the replicator and she's trying to order a chocolate sundae, and she's like, I want a real chocolate sundae, and the computer's like, nope, that's unhealthy, you can't have it, you have to override security protocols. And then she never actually gets it, which is kind of the sad part. The main plot of the story comes around. Which, for this episode, this is a good episode. It's really interesting. Technically speaking, it's almost a part 1 episode of a 2-parter, except for part 2 doesn't come out for like 5 years. Season 3 of Voyager sees the end of this episode, so it's kind of interesting to me. And this episode's also the first for a lot of stuff. So in this episode, they find a planet that has control of a stable wormhole. And then you have different people trying to bid for it so that they own it. Which, that whole concept to me is really weird, but whatever. It makes sense because it's in the episode. And so the whole episode is just about them. And this episode is very awkward and uncomfortable to begin with. Because as these different races are bidding on it, one of them ends up being a betazoid, or at least a half betazoid as well. And it's just a very uncomfortable relationship between him and Deanna. And so anyways, the Ferengi end up coming in as well. And so it's the first stable wormhole that we've ever seen. And that's kind of the main plot for Deep Space Nine, is a stable wormhole as well. And they mention that this is a stable wormhole that ends in the distant Gamma Quadrant, which is also where the stable wormhole in Deep Space Nine goes to. Well, Geordi and Data take a shuttle, and with two Ferengi also take a shuttle, and they go through it to kind of study the other side temporarily. And when they get there, it turns out that the second half of the wormhole is not stable, and that it moves around. Like, almost if you imagine like the head of a snake and then the tail's moving. And now they're in the Delta Quadrant, which is where like the second half takes place in Voyager. And so Geordi and Data instantly are like, we got to get out of here. And so they come back, and the Ferengi are like, don't tell us what to do. And then the wormhole closes and it moves. And so the two Ferengi are stuck in the Delta Quadrant now. And so it's interesting because this, I think, as far as I can remember, this is the first time that we've heard the Delta and the Gamma Quadrant mentioned. We still haven't heard the Alpha and the Beta Quadrant mentioned. So it's just kind of interesting that they're finally starting to mention some of these little tidbits that most of us already know about, but we're finally starting to see them come around. But yeah, like I said, the overall, like, any of the scenes that have to do with like the Ferengi or the wormhole or stuff like that are really good, and they're really interesting. All of the scenes that kind of deal with Deanna and this other betazoid just really made me feel awkward and uncomfortable, which is how you're supposed to feel around them. But overall, I'd say it's a good episode, and it's an interesting episode. I can't wait for us to get to Voyager so we can see the second half. I might have to go back and rewatch this one. For those who have seen this episode, what do you guys think about it? What do you guys think about wormholes in general? Technically, this isn't the first one we've encountered. I think there was one in the motion picture, if I remember correctly. And so what do you guys think about wormholes? Do you think it's kind of a cop-out? Do you think it's interesting? What do you guys think about the Gamma and Delta Quadrant references? Do you guys think that this is the first like rough draft of Deep Space Nine? Go ahead and let me all know in the comments below what you guys think about that. Thank you guys for everything, and I will see you guys next time for Vengeance Factor.